What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Trust Your Board podcast. My name is Stephen Wright, joined by Mr. William Monroe. Will, how you doing?
Steve, I'm doing well. Another week in the books here. How are you?
Oh, pretty good. We're both looking like we're going to be picking up a win here in our work league. And then in our main dynasty, it's coming down to Metcalf. We need him to not be great.
Yeah, 14, 15 points or less it looks like we need.
Yeah, which is a big ask, but also, the circumstances are right. We were talking this morning, Lattimore, pretty good corner, and, have Russ, the storm's brewing for it to work out in our favor, but we'll see.
Yeah, fingers crossed, we will see, but it definitely seems like it's possible. And then, we're 5-1 there, so can take a loss, but it's to a main division rival, so definitely be good to get that win and get a little piece of the tiebreaker.
Yeah, and we do quite a bit of smack talk too, so it hurts when you lose after you've been talking so much.
Oh yeah, especially leading into this week.
Yeah, that's our style though.
That it is, and as we get into week 8 here, we got to figure out how we're going to be able to win some games, and that usually comes down to picking up the right players, isn't it?
Yes, that is a very true, crucial time of the year. You're on that bubble. You know if you're a playoff team, if you're not a playoff team, and then if you might get in with one of those last spots or might not. So waivers are incredibly important. Week 7 buys, we only got the Ravens and the Raiders on bye.
Yeah, big turnaround from 6 buys last week to only 2 here this week.
Yeah, heaven forbid you do just 4 and 4 and just even things out and making things a little bit easier, but whatever.
Felt so weird, because I think there are only a few games in each of the windows for Red Zone because of the bye weeks.
Yeah, I don't know why they do it. I'm sure there's a reason that we just don't understand. But either way, regardless, Ravens and Raiders are on bye this week. So let's jump into the waivers here. Well, running backs, not too many. We did get some news
big
today
injury there in Philly with Miles Sanders, I think is going to be the big thing here.
We don't know if he's missing time yet, though, right?
Word I just read here is that he avoided any broken bones, but they expect him to miss 2 to 3 weeks. Okay,
there you go, 2 to 3 weeks. So incredibly important. You have Kenneth Gainwell and Scott over there in Philly. Gainwell surprisingly only rostered in 22% of leagues. Scott only 2%. So out of the two, who do you want? What are you bidding on him?
Yeah, I think Gainwell clearly is the one that they like more. He's getting action even with Sanders healthy. I think they'll probably be a pretty even split. Maybe Gainwell edges out Scott a bit, but they definitely trust Boston Scott, and I think big situations maybe they would go to him. But Gainwell has proven all year that he needs to get touches, and he has been. So I think they're both good plays. I think I probably would put more in for Kenny Gainwell, just because you probably have more upside there. Both of them have a pretty solid matchup against Detroit this week, and overall, not horrible matchups. You got Detroit, the Chargers, let's say, and then Denver would be the next 3 if we're expected. We're expecting Sanders to miss 2 to 3 weeks. Pretty solid matchups. So I think both of them have to be rostered, and probably somewhere in the 5 to 8 range for Scott, and probably looking 10 to 20, if not more, for Gainwell, right?
Yeah, probably. Scott's a tough one because his usage this year has been non-existent. But then when he came in and it went for Miles going down, I believe he did out carry Gainwell. Not by a lot. It was like 7 to 5 or something like that. But I found that surprising. So I don't know. Like you said, someone, that needs a running back will probably come in and do that 7 or 8%. But I don't think I would pay that. To your point, Gainwell is a more interesting one to me as well. And I think you're probably right, 15, 20%, and again, that guy that's on the bubble and needs a running back might pay up. That's certainly possible, but in a lot of leagues, I could see him going for 20% as well. So we'll see. We will not see in our league because I still have Gainwell.
I do see that. I pulled him up. I used our league waivers here for reference from the podcast, and Saw that name there.
I might
Mr. 30
might
minute
use him as
lunch.
some trade bait. Let's see
Yeah. Hey,
if I could
3
do something
weeks.
here because I got
Might be able
I'm
to
sitting
make
on
something.
who are my running backs? Chubb, Najee, Patterson, Mitchell, and Gainwell. So
Yeah.
I got the
Solid
depth to move
five, especially
someone.
if Chubb comes back this week.
Yeah, and he's already in practice, so he should be fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, me aside, next on our list, barely making the cut of our cutoff is Mr. Herbert down there in Chicago, rostered in 59% of leagues. Again, I'm surprised because he's been tearing it up.
And I think it probably went down this week too with Damian Williams coming back. People maybe got a little scared of how the split would be and either didn't start him or maybe dropped him in certain scenarios. And that's why we're at 59%. But he once again clearly looked like the lead guy. 19 carries, 3 targets. I mean, he almost had 100 yards, just shy, got in the end zone. So he definitely looks like the guy that they trust the most there, to only 3 carries and 1 target for Damian Williams. So until David Montgomery comes back, Herbert is the guy.
Yeah, and Montgomery, I think, was on the 3-week IR, and that 3 weeks has passed, but I haven't seen anything about his return. So I kind of put Herbert in the same realm as Gainwell. Like, obviously he's better, but his usage might be more limited to like maybe another week, maybe 2.
Yeah.
We really don't know. Bidding on him is difficult. If he was just dropped, I think you got to bid, probably 30+% to get him. If he's been available this whole time in your league, then you could probably just throw whatever at him, 10%, just to secure your get him, and people are obviously not looking his way.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like you said, this was the 3rd week of Dave Montgomery being inactive and on the IR, so would technically be eligible this week. They have San Francisco, then a Monday night game against Pittsburgh if they want to give him a little extra rest, but then the bye after that. So I think this is, should this have been the bye, obviously we think he'd come back next week. Should the bye be week 9, then maybe it's like, oh yeah, we'll give him 1 extra week, but 2 games and then the bye, I think you might be asking a lot to, have him benched for 2 more weeks if he's healthy. Obviously, we'll have to wait and see. But I think Herbert, at the very least, is a good stash to have in case of injury because we know he's going to be the guy. But if Montgomery misses another game, San Francisco's pretty good defense. Pittsburgh, obviously, is usually very good. But I think just the volume, you have to have him in consideration.
Yeah, absolutely. Next on the list, Samaj P Rein had himself another good week. Nice breakaway touchdown.
His usage, 11 carries, 52 yards, another catch as well. And he's only 1 carry behind Joe Mixon's rushing attempts for the day. Yeah,
pretty surprising. Only rostered in what, 8% of leagues, 7% of leagues.
7, yeah.
Yeah, not a lot.
Got the Jets coming up, so it could be good game script for him.
Yeah, it could be. He's another one, people might be more on board now because he's done it 2 weeks in a row. He's one that I don't trust because I don't know. It's hard to trust Samaj P Rein,
Yeah.
He's probably another 15%er, I think, probably.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't spend more than 10. So you probably don't come down with him in many places, but he's more of, I think, a handcuff because even though he's looked good, if Mixon gets hurt, if Evans is healthy, they definitely have given Evans some work as well. So I don't know that we definitively know it will be all P Rein if he had the opportunity, just because they seem to like multiple backs that they have there.
Yeah, agreed. And then the other, our last running back here is Brendan Bolden over there in New England. Rostered in 6% of leagues, had himself a good week. He slid into that James White role there. So what do you think about him? What would you be bidding on him?
Yeah, Bolden, it's tough to say. I mean, he had only 1 carry, I believe. 2 carries for 2 carries for no yards, but 6 catches on 7 targets for 79 yards and a touchdown. So in a situation where you're looking for running back help, right, you don't have a ton going for you, he's not a bad play getting that much volume through the air. So I think, somewhere in that 5 to 10 range. Once again, I just don't know that you're going to get the pure volume that you'd want to see out of a guy like him. So I don't know that I'm spending a ton on him because you still have Najee there. You still have Ramondre Stevenson. Even J.J. Taylor outrushed him. but it seems like he's going to consistently have a role there at least.
Yeah, to me, he falls in that category of New England guy that's just hard to trust. And, like you said, he could be a fine flex option to throw in there, or he could just be nothing for you. And that's worrisome. I don't know what I would bid, probably like 5%. I'm really not interested. I'm sure he'll probably go for more than that in your leagues for some desperate guy, but I want to stay away. I don't like that situation.
Yeah. I think it's more, desperation if you really need a play. And obviously there's not a ton of bye weeks this week. So, I mean, what are you, Josh Jacobs owner? You're the Latavius Murray, Freeman. There's probably better options out there on the waivers as well as on your roster in most places.
Yep. And then moving over to the wide receivers here, Marquez Callaway, we talked about him last week, roster in 49% of leagues. Obviously he's got the game tonight. We're recording here on Monday. So I guess we'll really need to wait and see what his usage is there.
He had good usage before the bye week. So I think, there's definitely something to be said that, he's working his way up. I know he had 4 for 41 and a touchdown in week 3, only 2, but for 74. So he's got the big play in week 4, and then week 5 before the bye week, 8 targets, 4 catches, 85 yards, 2 touchdowns. So definitely has a lot of upside. I think at this point he's going to prove that he's got to be on a roster. He's probably your kind of juice play where if you need a big game, you're going all in on him, knowing that you got, maybe a lower floor.
Yeah, and it depends on, Michael Thomas and what happens, when he returns and, how things shake out on that front. So remains to be seen. Another guy, well, not another guy because not Callaway, but, from Michael Thomas being away to Michael Gallup being away, he is looking to make his return. I think he's been activated, but I don't think they're expecting him this week. It might be another.
I know he's activated, and now the window is basically 21 days to like put him on the active roster. So
I think they're expecting another week at least, not this week. So
maybe they get some practice in here. He had the bye week. So I think he's definitely a guy you got stashed, like we've been talking about. Shop Bateman for a while, right? Just because there's upside there, possibly an opening. Maybe not as big of an opening here with the way that the tight end's been playing, but maybe that eats into the tight ends a little bit. And he's going to be one of those kind of boost plays that you could take your shot on, and maybe it's his week in the offense of those 3 skilled receivers they have.
Yeah, absolutely agreed, 100%. Russell Gage had himself a week. Out in Atlanta, a big game. A lot was expected of him in the offseason. He hasn't really lived up to that, but he's been out for a while. But an interesting play if he could capture kind of what people expected of him. What do you think of Mr. Gage?
Yeah, I think he's a solid play. It's tough because you're probably not going to be looking at a ton of upside for him. You got Pitts and you got Callaway or Calvin Ridley there, so there's definitely a smaller piece of the pie. But they have Carolina, I believe, this week, or is it Tampa? Or Carolina, because it's all of the NFC South teams playing each other. So he's got Atlanta and Carolina. So Carolina's a pretty good defense. We'll see if Stephon Gilmore gets activated. He didn't play this week, so I don't know that we have an idea of when he's going to play, but they have been a pretty good defense, but have overall as a team not been playing great. So I think you're hoping for some safe, decent volume, but you're looking at the 3rd or even 4th option if you really consider Patterson, right?
Yeah, and you have to. He does a lot of damage in the air, so that can't be ignored. So we'll see. He's a good kind of depth guy to take to grab and wait and see what happens. See if maybe he can recapture what we thought. Khalif Raymond next on the list over in Detroit. If you don't know the name, he's had a couple blow up games this year, and then a couple other not fantastic, but pretty average. Didn't make or break you kind of weeks. So interesting. Definitely not one of the guys that people had pinned for breaking out in Detroit, but He's done pretty good here. He might end up just being kind of a boom bust kind of a guy. It's hard to tell because, his fantasy scores are all over the place. Just for our league, half point scoring, 7.4, 2.8, 9.8, 18.1, 0, 6.7, 14.6. So, he's not quite boom bust because, there's some average scores in there, but he's kind of hard to predict, I think.
Yeah, and the one thing is he does have the Eagles this week, so decent matchup, but he does have the bye coming up after that. I don't know that I'd want to spend up a ton. And then that bye week would be the Lions, Seahawks, Buccaneers, and Washington, being that you may need to move on from him after the 1 week because of bye situations, depending on how your team looks and what kind of buys you have. So take that into consideration that you're getting him going into his bye after this week if you do pick him up.
Yep, absolutely. Good point. The news of the day here, Devontae Adams going on the COVID list, and then Alan Lazard probably going to be on this list anyway because he's had 2 good weeks in a row. He is a must get, and I'd imagine you're going to have to pay up. He's not a running back, but 2 good weeks in a row, the guy in front of you going down, good offense, people dealing with bye weeks.
Yeah, it's great matchup. I mean,
yeah,
just
it's
because of the game script at least.
Yeah, it's a perfect storm for Lazard. So what would you be bidding on him if you needed a wide receiver?
If you really need a receiver play, I probably wouldn't mind spending closer to 20. I spend a ton on the wide receiver position just because of the quantity that's usually out there. But this is a guy. It's going to be him and Cobb, I guess, and MVS maybe. Like it's probably going to be spread around. Maybe it's a Tunyan game. Who knows? But I think you have to take a shot on him.
Yeah, I agree. And I probably agree with the price tag too. That sounds about right. Now, you do need to keep in mind, Adams' COVID situation is probably, I'd assume, not going to be anything more than a week. But again, he's had standalone value the past 2 weeks. So you don't really know. But yeah, 20% I think sounds about right, especially if you need a wide receiver. Or just some depth. If you need some depth, I'm not sure if I'd part with 20%. Maybe take a shot on something a little bit less, but yeah, he's a must grab. He's one of the more interesting guys on this list for me, and we know he could do it. We've seen it in years past that he's been productive for stretches, so that's good. Your boy here, Will, Rashad Bateman, had himself another big week from a target standpoint. From a fantasy standpoint, he was again fine. He didn't win you the week. He didn't lose you the week. He was solid, really good, which is what you want to see out of your rookie, right? Only rostered 32% of weeks. He is on a bye this week, but maybe that presents an opportunity to grab him.
Yeah, maybe you can buy low. If a team is looking to just, looking to fill a roster spot, team can't afford the bye week. Maybe you can go out and trade for him, or possibly could look to pick him up if someone has to move on from him because of bye weeks and they have to cut him. So keep an eye out in your leagues. Like I said, he's 32% rostered now. That could go down with the bye week if people don't have room to hold him.
Yep, absolutely. And then the last one we have here, Mr. Cole Beasley, somebody definitely on the list a lot. Not as wonderful as he has been in years past, but it definitely fitting that kind of boom bust mold. His last week, I think he had 80-some yards and a touchdown. Right? Yeah, he did a lot, but the week prior he had like 1 point. So he's definitely kind of boom bust. There's a lot of good options there in Buffalo between Knox, Sanders, Diggs, him. Josh Allen just running it in. So he's not going to be consistent, but he could provide you some boom if that's what you need, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think you have a chance at some major upside there, just because of how powerful that offense is, but you are competing with Sanders and Dawson Knox for those targets behind Diggs.
Yes, sir. Now moving over to the tight end position, CJ Zuzama had himself a game.
Yeah, I think we were talking about how, he probably had his best game of his career a few weeks ago, but he's trying to follow that up with another good game here. And I watched the touchdowns, man. He put some good moves after the catch to get by the defender, change the direction, and get in the end zone. Look like on both of them.
Yeah, he did. in between those 2 weeks, between, this boom game and the last boom game, he did have one that was not very good. He had, I think, like 15 yards. And the other one was fine. It was like 15 yards, but he did score. So, that's good. He does seem like your typical kind of boom bust tight end. He's not going to be anything consistent. Like, we know what Zuzama is. He isn't breaking out at this point. Provided there's no injuries, Jamar Chase goes down and suddenly, maybe he does become more consistent. I don't know. But, yeah, he definitely has some boom to his game if that's what you need. He's a tight end. I probably wouldn't be bidding too much on him, but he is interesting.
Yeah, I think, if you need a tight end, like I've got Darren Waller, ended up going with somebody else, but if he's out there, he's someone I wouldn't mind picking up and just taking the shot on, because you're missing Waller on your bye week this week, or Mark Andrews. Yeah, so it's big. I guess technically a big bye week for tight ends. You're gonna have two of the premier guys out.
Yeah, that's true. And one guy, if you're looking for more consistency, is probably Ricky Seals-Jones. Since he's taken over 9 targets, 6 targets, 7 targets. He hasn't really burned you for fantasy. He's been solid. 1 week was a really good week. The other 2 were just fine. But of the 2, and then actually probably of all of them that we're talking about today, he's probably the more interesting. Again, we don't know how long his usage is going to be with Logan Thomas out, and I'd assume returning at some point. But he should be rostered. Only rostered in 54% of leagues.
Yeah, I think he's definitely someone you got to take a shot on, especially while Logan Thomas is out. He seems to be probably the second non-running back option here. I mean, it's pretty inconsistent with the other receivers behind McLaurin. Gibson and McKissick are going to get their looks, but they definitely have Ricky Seals-Jones in the game plan. So I think he's someone that has to be rostered here, especially on a week with a couple of big time tight end buys.
Agreed. Ty Conklin, also popping up on the list here. He was on the bye this week, if memory serves. Is that correct?
Yes. I believe Minnesota's coming off the bye, just as is Dallas. So big matchup. And I think, he's okay, but the potential you're going to have to score a good bit against Dallas. Maybe this is a shootout. You take your shot on maybe one of the higher over-unders. I haven't looked at them yet, but I presume this is probably one of the higher over-unders of the week.
Yeah, agreed. And he might be a forgotten guy because he was on the bye, so he didn't do anything. He didn't have a good game like a, Zuzama or Seals-Jones. So he might be the forgotten guy there. Cole Kmet, worth mentioning. He's had 2 fine weeks in a row. Again, didn't win your week, but didn't lose your week. He wasn't too bad. Now, the worry is that you're playing a bear and nobody wants to do that. So it's kind of a risky spot, but a young guy, he could start putting it together. Got a couple more weeks until he gets to his bye. So, maybe, but probably a guy I'd imagine you can get for free if you want.
Yeah. I think he's someone, as I said, we're a couple weeks away from his bye, so you might be able to stream him for a week or 2, and been fairly consistent when it comes to, the last few weeks of being able to put up some numbers here. Looking at, 6.9, 6.8 in the last 2 weeks and half-point scoring. Obviously not great. But if he gets in the end zone, 5 for 43, 4 for 49. So you're just hoping he gets in the end zone there, and that would have really put him over. Yeah,
and then our last tight end here, Robert Tunyan, had himself a good week, and then he is also a benefactor of this Adams news. Roster in 51% of league, so half of you, he's out there. That's pretty interesting. He's at Arizona this week, so that could absolutely be a shootout, a very interesting game. Maybe this is going to be where Arizona loses finally, but Tunyan, he's probably for a 1 week, probably a period, I would say he's the most interesting guy on the list for me.
To say, hypothetically speaking, you had Darren Waller, Steve, and you were needing to start a tight end this week. Would Tunyan be your guy? Oh yeah.
If it's a one, my only hesitation isn't from not liking Tunyan. It's like he's guaranteed a good week in my eyes. It's just scary to say. He'll probably end up doing nothing. But whereas Ricky Seals-Jones, I don't know when Logan Thomas is coming back. Maybe he's look at 3 more weeks of solid Ricky Seals-Jones. And is that better than one really good week of Tunyan and then 2 more weeks of what he's been the rest of the year? Maybe. But 1 week, Waller's out, Andrews is out, Tunyan's my guy for sure.
Yeah, and hypothetically, once again, Steve, how much would you be willing to spend on this guy for a 1 week rental?
Oh boy.
Asking for a friend.
Asking for a friend. That's a tough one. Oh man. I think you're gonna have to pay a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because, like Lazard, it's the perfect storm. He had a good
Yeah.
week. The story with Adams is out there. So I don't know. For 1 week, I mean, he is a tight end. You'd probably have to go over 20%. And if someone's desperate enough, I'm sure they'll get up in the 30s. But I think something in the 20s will get it done. Is that what you
Like
were
I said,
thinking? Or
you're going to have the Mark Andrews owner and the Darren Waller owner probably both likely aren't holding a second tight end at that point. So in all likelihood, you're going to be competing with at least one other owner, if not another team that's just looking for filling
is this
that
our
position.
work league?
This is our work league.
Because there's a certain owner in our league that has Hawkinson and Ertz that may be interested in a trade.
Interested in trying to package a bunch of players together as always.
Probably. I want to upgrade somewhere. Anyway, we can look at that later.
Let's take a look at the streaming quarterbacks here. It's a couple interesting options.
Yeah, so we have Wentz packaged with his terrible interception versus Tennessee. That was something else, wasn't it?
That was. I mean, I've seen it, right? I've been firsthand for years now. And maybe not that bad, but he's always just trying to make a play out of something, and then it was just pitiful to watch.
Yeah. Anyway, Wentz versus Tennessee. Trevor Lawrence at Seattle, Garoppolo at Chicago, Sam Darnold at Atlanta, and Daniel Jones at Kansas City. Who do you want?
Yeah, I mean, I think first glance you think Tennessee's defense is very good. It's a divisional matchup. Carson Wentz, they really need to win that game if they're going to want to have a shot at competing. I believe they already lost to Tennessee, and they are 2 back. So if you lose this one, you're 3 back, and you don't have the tiebreaker. So that's a must win there. So you maybe kind of go with the momentum and then what needs to happen. But I think Lawrence and Jones are probably the ones that interest me the most, because of the matchups. I mean, Trevor Lawrence has been playing better in recent weeks. Gets Seattle, who seems to be middling, and we'll see does Russell Wilson come back. I've heard, he's ahead of schedule. Obviously not playing tonight on Monday Night Football, but maybe he makes it back for next week, and that changes the dynamic. But Lawrence is interesting. Daniel Jones, I think, is a sneaky play, depending on who can all get healthy. It is a Monday night game. But against Kansas City has to win. So, they're 3-4 now. They need to get on track. So that could be a high scoring game.
Yeah. And I think that's my answer. Kansas City's like dead last in every major defensive category. They've just been terrible. And, Daniel Jones isn't, the greatest quarterback on earth, but I think he can put up some points. So I think he's my guy. Surprising. I don't like it, but
it doesn't feel right, but I think that's the play. I think Lawrence is kind of the backup, and he's out there 28% rostered, so you're going to have a shot at him.
He is, and the other guys, they all just worry me. Like Wentz, we know what Wentz is. Lawrence is a rookie. Jimmy G might not even be starting. I don't even know. And Darnold hasn't looked good, so
no,
it's got to be Daniel Jones for me.
Yeah. So we'll move over to defensive streamers here. Got a few options. We've got the Bengals, 18% rostered at the Jets. We've got the Chargers, 16% rostered at New England. A couple of higher ones. Washington at Denver, 34. We got Steelers at 52% at Cleveland, but potentially the Baker list. We'll see who gets healthy there. That could be an interesting one. And then the battle of the two of the worst teams in the NFC here, Eagles and Lions, going heads up against each other. Any interest in any of these defenses?
Yeah, so I'll give 2 answers here. The one that I like the most is the Steelers because of what you said with Cleveland. Everyone's just so banged up. Steelers also coming off the bye. So extra prep time, which is nice, but they're 52% owned. So 50-50 shot whether they're out there for you. If we're looking in some of the lesser owned teams, I'd probably take my shot on the Bengals at the Jets. Chargers at New England's pretty interesting too. It's not bad. I don't really trust Washington against Denver, and I'm not playing with the Eagles and the Lions there. So if the Steelers aren't available, I'll go with the Bengals here. What about you?
Yeah, I kind of second most of what you say. I will say Washington's defense does look to be playing a little bit better. Obviously, they had a couple rough weeks early on, but the last 2 weeks in our scoring format have only let up 11 points, and that's against Kansas City and 11 fantasy points scored against Green Bay and Kansas City. So giving up some points, 31 points and 24 points respectively, but 3 sacks and 3 turnovers in the Kansas City game, and 3 sacks, a turnover, and a block in the Green Bay game. So they definitely, that defensive line seems to be picking it up and getting to the quarterback. And Denver's kind of, they couldn't even beat a Cleveland team that was missing half their team. They seem to be a little out of whack. We'll see if they get healthy here. Teddy gets everything on straightened out, and then I think we may be having Jerry Jeudy coming back. So some influx there, but I do think Washington is an interesting sneaky option if you have room on your bench, maybe just to kind of see if they can get righted. They do have the bye coming up after Denver, though, so could be a 1 week play.
Awesome. That's very true. You got to pay attention to the when those bye weeks are coming up for sure. But that is going to wrap up the show for today. Tune in on Thursday for our start sits for week 8. Until then, folks, trust your board.